Welcome back to this first session on the topic of attracting investments, forging growth and prosperity. So after we just heard the TYT speech, right? Like nothing can beat, really difficult to match that, the speech. But with me, I have four distinguished panelists. So I'm very confident that they will be able to deliver, the message about Penang Future Forward, how to go forward with Penang. So our first role player, the speaker, is Tan Sri Andrew Sheng, right? Tan Sri Andrew Sheng is not from Penang, but he has chosen Penang as his home base, is it? One of the home bases he has. So we're happy to have him to be in Penang. Tan Sri Andrew Sheng is a well-known economist. He was formerly a regulator in Asia, a central banker, right? So he was also a pro-chancellor at the University of Bristol in UK. It's quite an achievement for a Malaysian to be a pro-chancellor in one of the top universities in UK. And he was also the fellow, distinguished fellow at the Asia Global Institute at the University of Hong Kong, as well as the chairman of Georgetown Institute of Open and Advanced Studies at Wawasan Open University in Penang. So Mr. Andrew has traveled around the world. So he was named by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world, right, in the late 2013. So with that kind of introduction, I'd like to bring forward, the floor is yours, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for your very kind words of introduction. I was going to listen to, why we Dato Halim to give the big picture, but Stephen has put me in a difficult spot of being the first to speak after TYT's very bold and, if I may say so, breathtaking speech. So let me first congratulate Tan Sri Michael Yeo, my good friend, chairman of CASI, and Mr. Michel von Kombrug, MICCI, for their excellent introductory remarks. But I want to follow up on basically what TYT said. I think his ideas that we should be bold to think about whether we should go back to a free trade zone area, whether we should have a sovereign wealth fund, is amazing. And I think, I want to take up this challenge, but my presentation today, unfortunately, is timid. The timid was because I want to be polite. But since TYT has thrown the challenge down, in my verbal comments, I may be a little bit more bold. So the key theme is part of my thinking for a speech that I will give in Kuala Lumpur on the 18th about what I think is our post-COVID and post-election Malaysian economic strategy, put it this way. I don't want to talk about policies. The issue that I think I want to make very quickly is that Malaysia has a beautiful window of opportunity to take our niche in the global knowledge-based economy. And, this is where we need to put our brains. What is our specialty in this area to have green, inclusive development? And we now need to get away from this idea of silos, academia doing their own thing, business doing their own thing, civil service, ABC, doing their own thing. We need to come together as a team. As TYT said, the worst is yet to come, but if we are able to get our act together, we can think globally, think systemically, act locally. That's my basic theme. That's what I really want to say. So the whole idea is that what went wrong in the last 30 years? And the answer is, the macro picture was good because the world economy was growing strongly. The geographical position, Malaysia is not only in ASEAN, but in the fastest growing zone in the world. So everything was going right. And yet Malaysia's position keep on going sliding in relative terms. And the basic problem is mindset. Why does Malaysia cannot get out of the middle income trap? We keep on getting to ringgit nearly US dollar 10,000, then the ringgit goes down, boom, it will go below again. The middle income trap is a mental trap. As long as you think second class, you will be second class. Okay, I'm going to be blunt about this issue. So the key big picture globally is that by 2008, manufacturing has peaked. World trade in manufacturing has peaked and has begun to go downwards. What has increased is digital support services trade. That means more and more knowledge-based services that is delivered, on the internet, through the internet, okay, through the banking system, the financial system, in terms of knowledge value added, will be the future. That's the challenge for Malaysia. Can we do it? And it all takes brains. And the best way to think about this is Malaysia has got beautiful natural resources. When Tun Mahathir said, look east, South Korea was not that far advanced from us. Today, South Korea is an advanced country. We are still at the bottom of the ceiling for the middle income countries' issues. But where does Penang fit in this? If the future is not just in manufacturing, but digital services that support manufacturing as well as creative green services, Penang is in that beautiful spot. Look at this. 47% of Penang's value added is manufacturing. Okay? 47% is services. What does that tell you? Penang is already number 2 in per capita income compared to, the other states, right? So the number of Penang as the number 4 or 5 in GDP, something is wrong with those numbers in Malaysia, and put it this way, right? Of course, Penang is small in population, but the value-added numbers is very interesting in my regard. Now, technology you all know about, right? That's the story driving Penang, is what Michelle was talking about, and many of you would know this. The Malaysia accounts for 7% of the total global semiconductor trade. Roughly half of this comes from Penang and the Northern Corridor, right? And of course, 13% of the global chip testing and packaging comes in Penang. So we have a very good positioning. And the reason for that positioning, as TYT says, is thanks to the far-sighted leadership of, Penang leadership, which then attracted the 8 samurai here, which then built on this. Without that, half of Malaysia's exports would not have existed today. Just think about it. We depend upon oil, the manufacturing for half our exports, oil for roughly 17-18%, palm oil for 17-18%. How much of Penang sees in the oil revenue? The amount of oil we got, we spent 80 billion of it on petrol subsidies. Does it make sense? Okay? When everybody's, looking out for this. But in technology, we are growing. And that's where our niche is. Now, Georgetown Institute of Open and Advanced Studies, we're a very small think tank. We're doing a major study on the technology industry in Penang. Because I said, look, this accounts for, sort of 1/4 of Malaysia's income, and we have, the last study of this was done in early 2010. And so the preliminary results I just shared with you is that whereas the value added of multinationals, which was the main driver of the tech industry in Penang or in the Northern Corridor, was 22%. The locals was 23%. Today, ours is 30%. The locals are now 30%, and the foreigners are still remaining at about 22-23%. What goes to tell you is not about saying, look, we should encourage our local champions. The real secret is how to get the partnership between the locals and the multinationals, as well as the government and the universities, to upgrade our brain power and our talent, which is the point that Michelle made. You know, we're victims of our success. We bring the people in, and suddenly, where is the labor? Right? Not just where is the labor. The labor issue in Malaysia is that we import cheap labor and we export all our talent. That's no secret of success. Okay? Right? So, if we then thought about the number 2 issue, the number 2 issue is where Penang's strength also is. It's tourism. Why is tourism so important? Now, tourism at this peak in 2019, Penang only earns 6 billion. Whereas the tech industry is hundreds of billions, right? In terms of export. Value added of manufacturing to Malaysia is 21%. Value added of oil and gas is 8%, slightly under 9%. Value added, of education is 8%. Value added of tourism is 15%. That's the latest DOS, the Department of Statistics numbers. What does that tell you? Why is that? Tourism is not just spending by foreigners coming in. It's about locals. The revival of Penang post-COVID is really due to local spending, right? Which goes to show that if we develop our domestic and foreign tourism, we will increase our value added by 15%, to 15%, okay? And every dollar spent on tourism in Penang is in your pocket. Every dollar you get from the exports, 60-70% goes out in imports. Okay, let's be realistic about it. That's why value-added thinking is very important. Okay, this is the critical issue. So it is a very major boost to multiple sectors. So look at the tourism numbers, right? Okay, we had 26 million arrivals at the peak, earning 86 billion in foreign income. Domestic spending, right, was another 100 million. So actually, domestic tourism earns as much, not all in foreign exchange, as the other industries. Okay? And so therefore, for Penang, T in technology and T in tourism is critical. It's critical. But how do you get this? And that is due to education. T for talent. If you don't have people, you're finished. The competition globally is not about technology. It is about talent. It's about talent. And Penang has tremendous talent. But if you look at the education, I just dug out some of these numbers, it's staggering. The university in Penang is USM. How much was the spending of the USM? 634 million ringgit in 1 year, federal government expenditure. How much was this in private spending? The whole for Penang, 770 million. What does that tell you? Compare this with Wilayah in Selangor, 63% of private education and more than 70% of federal spending on higher education in the Selangor Wilayah area. So what does that tell you? Now, an optimist will tell you the future of education is in Penang based upon its oldest history of the oldest schools in the region. And the products of some of this school is today running one of the top, tech companies in the world, right? I don't need to mention this, but it's an ex-free school boy, right? So the result of this says, if you don't spend on your talent and you don't pay them, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. I'm sorry to say this, right? Penang and Malaysia can only go up there if we pay our people serious money. Otherwise, we'll keep on losing them. Malaysia spent at its peak 7% of GDP on education. And all we're doing is supplying doctors to Singapore, accountants to Hong Kong, etc., etc. What is this? Okay? So I'm appealing to all of you as a community, the ABC must work together. So the moving forward is the 3T strategy for Penang and maybe for Malaysia as a whole. Okay? T for technology, T for tourism, and T for talent. If we don't retain our talent, we have no hope. Let me give you a simple illustration that I heard from the last time, from my technology friends. We can no longer hire Vietnamese engineers because they don't have enough for Vietnam itself. Okay? We can no longer hire plantation workers from Indonesia because Indonesia plantation workers are being paid as much as Malaysia. You must be joking. We gave all our technology on palm oil and to Indonesia in terms of the seeds and the plantation management, and now they overtook us. Is that the strategy we want to carry on? We are lucky that palm oil doesn't feature a lot in Penang's strategy. But can we carry on doing palm oil? Can we carry on benefiting from oil and gas, price of which is not under our control? So the 3T strategy has to be the way forward. So what are some of the ideas going forward? Well, my first major point is organization, organization, organization. If we don't get academia, business, and civil service working together, both at the local, the state, and the federal government, we're going to be in deep trouble. Unity government is about harmony and working together rather than working against each other. Okay? And it's time for us now to sit down and have a serious conversation. How do we define not just Penang's strategic strengths and opportunities, but Malaysia's? Right? That's first point number one. Second point is very clearly, we've been talking across each other because in terms of sectors, in terms of gender, in terms of ethnic, we are all in gated communities. We only talk within each other's social bubbles. We don't talk to each other, with each other, how to meet what TYT said is the worst is yet to come. And we don't do this. So creating the actual platforms for us to have that conversation is very critical. Okay, listen more, act more from a bottom up, right? Work with the international community, work with our leaders. And just a very quick idea. Penang's historical strength, as TYT mentioned, and Dato Seri, Faisal would tell you, is Penang's market has always been Sumatra, southern Thailand, and even as far as Rangoon. Why aren't we talking now to their chambers of commerce to see how we can attract their talent and work in partnership to develop not just tourism, health, technology, engineering skills, etc., etc. So that's just some of these preliminary ideas. So on that note, I'm sorry I have not been able to be so bold, but time's up. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Tan Sri and Sheng. I think he has been emboldened by the TYT speech, right? So I mean, his earlier slide maybe a bit cautious what he said, but I'm happy that he emboldened. So our next distinguished speaker is YB Dato Haji Abdul Halim bin Haji Hussain, right? Dato Halim is the Penang State Exco for Trade, Industry and Entrepreneurial Development, right? Dato Halim sits on the board of Penang Invest-in-Penang. He sits on the board of Penang PDC, as well as he's also the chairman of Penang Hala International, right? Dato Halim is a US graduate. He studied like me in Michigan. We're both from the same state of Michigan. And he's also MBA graduate. Dato Halim, I think he loves Penang. He's a Penang boy, Balik Pulau boy. He's my first Malay friend, I think, in Penang. So I'm happy to introduce him today. I think that he loved Penang so much that he chose to stay put in Penang to pursue his career. He was also the last speaker, Penang State Assembly speaker during 2008 and 2013, right? With that, Dr. Halim, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, very good morning. Moderator, Stephen Lai, fellow speakers, Tan Sri Andrew Sheng, Mr. Mark, and Dato Sri Lee Choon. To be here with the scholars, and many of the points have been taken up by our TYT, and what more with our economist Tan Sri Andrew Sheng. But I'll give an overview of, as a policy maker, one of the policy makers of Penang, and I'll give an overview where we are and where probably we should, some suggestion we should be going, and we look at the input of the from this conference for us to move forward as this conference is about, this summit is all about moving Penang future forward. We went through a tough time before COVID-19, and but then Penang is fortunate. We have the resilience to be able to sustain, and what more, to have the resilience agenda to be sustainable. And I believe Penang is well positioned for a sustainable growth in the future, whether socially, economically, and politically. We went through the first 50 years of industrial transformation. This year will be our 51st year. With that, we have built we have established the ecosystem, especially on the E&E sector, which has been our forte for all these years. And this is our strength of Penang. And to build in this ecosystem where I believe over these 50 years, we have built the trust. It's about trust where multinationals or local large companies, our SMEs, and also trust on the government, having this political stability that we currently have. Then our strength is also on our talent, multilingual, multicultural, and this is built over the years, nurturing existing and new talents. We are well connected by air, rail, and also seaport, and political stability. The Penang state government, and also now with the new unity government, we hope we can achieve this sustainable growth. Now, our Right Honorable Chief Minister has came up with a strong policy statement, making Penang a family-focused state, a green state, and also a smart state. This is a very strong policy statement. And definitely to work on these 4 Ps of people, public, private partnership will be the key thing for us to move forward. And how do we achieve this continuous, strong, sustainable growth? I believe we have to go beyond the E&E. Yes, E&E has been our forte, but we have to go beyond that. The non-semiconductor. We have continuous growth for the wireless, the IoT, the data center, and also the automotive. This is potential continuous growth for the E&E sector. But we got to go beyond that. We can go on the investment. We have to look at investment in the medical tourism, the wellness, more and more investment is coming on the wellness program here in Penang. We have to look on the agro and also the food tech, the medical device, and very interesting also on this green initiative, compliance to EDE and ESG. And I'm proud to share here that one of our multinational in Penang, Western Digital, has been named as Asia's first World Economic Forum Sustainability Lighthouse in Penang. And we would like to see this, our local SMEs, could accumulate this green initiative that has been achieved by this Western digital. Now, digitalization, the key thing, adoption of technologies is a must, and we have to move forward with that. And in May 2020, we formed Digital Penang. Invest-Penang will be our key one-stop point of investment to attract investment, but digitalization will be spearheaded by the Digital Penang, and we established that in May 2020. So we need strong startup ecosystem. Compared to Klang Valley that has 3,000 startups, we only have currently only 100 over startups in Penang. That is another growth area that we have to look into to expand. Also the R&D for our SMEs to move forward. We need funding for the SME for our SMEs. And while we are proud of our continuous growth in FDI, but then we like to see a balance of domestic direct investment. We can see there was a forum that shared by the Invest India that how strong their DDI. They have 2/3 of the investment come from the domestic direct investment. 2/3. And this is what we like to see Penang to establish. Now, what are the future challenges? Now, our government has signed the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and our government also have signed the CTP. Let me correct. The CPTPP. Okay. That opened the market access. Are we ready for that? Are we ready for this market access? This is our challenges. Now, we have our ASEAN region, 600 million population. We have also our national state. Penang's strength in E&E should be expanded to other states. We have to work on comparative advantage, not compete against one another within the state or even regionally. This is where we have to work with our ASEAN neighbors. When Thailand is strong in automotive, growing, Vietnam too is growing in this sector, and also in E&E sector. We have to work with this nation so that it's not wasted on competing against one another. Definitely our challenges is how to continuously improve on ease of doing business. That is something that the private government partnership has to work on how to improve further. And also Penang all this while with the new government, there's an opportunity for us to secure funding for infra in the future. Now, what opportunities lie ahead of us? Definitely renewable energy. Before that, I like this people-public-private partnership, engagement with academia, as mentioned by Tan Sri Andrew Sheng. And I like this. So far, we have worked at Penang State Government. We have worked with Asia School of Business, especially on, recently we have established the Industry 4.0 report on technology adoption in Malaysian manufacturing strategies for enhancing competitiveness. This can be used, can be shared upon by industries, academia, how to move forward. This is especially for Penang. It covers the whole country. What is the take-up rate and how we stand on the adopting the Industry 4.0. And also reports are established by ASB on the unlocking the low-carbon future for Malaysia. So opportunities is abundance there on renewable energy, digitalization, market access, and continuously we need R&D to support all these initiatives. And what are new sectors, as I mentioned, There is strong potential growth in the E&E, especially on the wireless, the IoT, the data center, and the automotive sector, but there's strong potential growth in the renewable energy that Penang should look forward to. And also I mentioned on the startups, where we have to work aggressively to assist our startup in order for us to continue our sustainable growth. Also the issues of cyber technologies. These are all new areas that we could work in order for us to maintain Penang sustainable growth. Maybe that's for the take now, and I leave the floor to my fellow members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, YB, Dato Halim, for a very well high-level policy speech for Penang Future Forward. So our next distinguished speaker is Dato Seri Lee Choon, who is the Special Investment Advisor to the Chief Minister of Penang. Dato Seri Lee is a lawyer by training, right? He's also my fellow Choon alumnus from Choon, and Dato Halim is from Penang Free School. These are all the product of the school from Penang, right? Dato Seri is also director of Invest-in-Penang, PDC, as well as Penang Hill Corporations. So he has a front row seat, right, to look at the policies, setting policies for Penang since the year 2008. So a long-time politician as well. So he is very qualified today to share with us his views about how to bring Penang Future forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for your kind introduction. My fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. For those of you who know me, I'm a very straightforward person. I not only do policy, I do the walking with the implementation as well. So, so there are a lot of things that I think we can talk, but if you don't walk, it is still talk. So that is a problem, I think, to a certain extent, what is inflicting Malaysia now for us to move forward. So this is something that I think we need to overcome. So after your hot coffee, I just start off with some cold facts that we have. This is all from the Department of Statistics. Malaysia total export today is 38% made up of E&E. Okay, that is number one, nearly 40% now. The closest is chemical export, 7.1%, petroleum product, 7%, natural gas, 6%, palm oil, 5.1%. You add all of them up, it is still less than E&E production from Malaysia. So this is how important it is as far as this E&E economy industry to the well-being of the Malaysian economy. That's number one, I think we have to keep track. Number two is that external trade surplus. It is made up 78% come from E&E. 78% of our trade surplus. And out of that, 70% come from Penang. Earlier, I said that the total export, 38% come from E&E, 60% of that come from Penang. For FDI, foreign direct investment, 76% is in E&E, 50% is in Penang. Okay, so these are the cold statistics. Please bear in mind when we discuss about attracting investment. So if you look at it, we play a very important role in this E&E sector. And globally, we do about 13%, 13% of chip testing and packaging. That is at the back end of this E&E. So just imagine that if Malaysia, Penang shut down today, that will be a major disruption in the supply chain. You will not have your cars, you will not have your handphone, you will not have your computer. So this is the magnitude of the role that we play in this world. We are small, but this is the role, the critical role that we play in this critical technology today. And it also signifies that how important it is for us as a state and also as a country, right? So that is a core facts. The other thing that I want to share with you is forging growth. That is the topics. As far as the growth is concerned, E&E growth rate global, right? It is going to go forward with a 4.4% annually. And all this is because we are at the verge of technology explosion, right? Nobody can stop this. We are playing a very major role in this. And the scene is beautiful, exciting, and full of business opportunity and full of goodness for all of us. The reason is very simple. AI, artificial intelligence, we heard about a lot of that, but we don't really feel it. But it is going to drive all of us, right? It will come a time whereby we are not going to have this physical meeting anymore. It is going to be AI. It can be done virtually. We have done that during COVID, right? So the life will be changing, but the technology onslaught is going to change everything, right? The important thing is today we are talking about prosperity. We just focus on how can we make money? How can we increase the country's wealth for the well-being of everyone? Artificial intelligence is going big. And all this, you need data center. And data center need semiconductor. As simple as that. So there is no way we can stop the juggernaut from moving forward. IoT, we have been talking about that for the last 10 years maybe, right? You call it industrial 4.0, you call it IoT, they are roughly the same thing as well. And all this, you need a lot of electronics. Deep machine learning need a lot of electronics as well. Similarly, robotics. Manufacturing is going to be revolutionized by automation. And you need electronics in order to drive all these machines. Quantum computing, augmented reality, 3D printing, etc. So these are coming. These are all in collision at this exciting time, all of you. So that there are plenty of opportunity for us to get ourselves into this exciting time. You can look at it from the financial perspective. You can look at it from the social perspective. But this is something that we can't avoid. And we are in the sweet spot because we are right into it. We are right into the eye of the storm of opportunity. The worst has yet to come, maybe. But exciting time, definite. Right? So it all depends on how we ride on this opportunity for us to move forward. Now talking about prosperity. As far as Penang is concerned, the economy is running well. Why? I think all of us, maybe we overlook one major factor. Do you realize that our manufacturing sector, especially those people in E&E, they are employed millionaire. You take away the employed millionaire, you average the pay to the workers, a rough estimate, 300,000 workers in the industrial zone times average income of 7,000, you have 2.1 billion Malaysian ringgit injected into the economy every month. Right? As simple as that. Simple arithmetic. And then you think about, it is not only the money that you get, but it is also the supply chain, the multiplying effect that we have. every major factory, they would have many smaller companies, supply chain to support them, employ even more people. That is number one. Number two is that the wider economy, when you have this sustained income for the people, the wider economy will benefit. Housing developer, car sales, F&B, etc., etc. So it is important. And we are in a very sweet spot because of the sustainability of this industry that is supporting the economy. So Penang is okay. And Penang is in the best of time, if you look at it, since the British came. This is the best of time. So don't be clouded by some of the challenges. Yes, there are challenges. But at the same time, don't be clouded by all this and then forget or ignore the opportunities that are open to all of us. But there's one thing that I'm most worried of. What if the 40% of the GDP, of the export, the 40% of the manufacturing sector that I shared with you suddenly disappeared? What are you going to find in order to replace this 40%? Bearing in mind that the 4 components that I shared with you just now, you add that up, it is less than 30%. That, I think, it is the major challenge for Malaysia. Thank you.
Lee, for giving us a very optimistic view of the future of Penang, despite all the mega threats of inflation, climate change. But it does inspire hope in us that there are a lot of challenges in Penang, but we can still find a way to solve them together, fight together. So I'll thank you so much for your speech. So our next, not least, last but not least panelist is Mr. Mark Junian, who is the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, Malaysia. So he is the first Malaysian to be the CEO of the Chartered Bank, since the bank has a presence here in 1875. So he made history. Let's give him a clap. Welcome. What an achievement for our Penang, right? So I was curious about his Penang connection, because I know that Dato Seri and myself, Halim, are from Penang. Then I know that this Tan Sri is from Sabah, but his wife is from Penang. So we have some connection here. So I asked him before, his mother is from Penang. So thank God we all have Penang connection here, right? So it's part of the Penang diaspora, right? So Penang connection. So Mr. Mark is a banker for 25 years, right? He, like me, he spent 15 years in Singapore. I spent 30 years in Singapore. I think that he has a very accomplished, distinguished career in the banking industry, UK graduate as well. So with that, the floor is yours, Mr. Mark.
We have to put a banker as the last speaker. It's an honor to be here, and I guess every panel needs a banker. You know, Standard Chartered, we've been here in Malaysia for 148 years, but the reality is, so what, right? And I think that's the theme of what I want to share the next 5 or 10 minutes is really, so what? Everything you know in the past, throw it away. We're almost starting a clean slate. Pandemic has kind of changed the fabric of the society we know. And I think if we don't think progressively, we might kind of rot a slow, painful death. I'll start with a story. And it's not a true story, but it is a relevant story and the facts are true. So if you had met me in 2021, and I said to you, so say around October, November 2021, and I'll say to you, guess what? My outlook for the next 12 to 18 months will be one of war, one of semiconductor winter, one of where tech stock prices will collapse 50%, in some cases 70%, and interest rates, US interest rates then were zero, would then shoot up to 5% or even more. You would think, I best withdraw my money from Standard Chartered Bank. This guy has no idea what he's talking about. The reality is we live in a very fast-moving environment, and unpredictability is almost the rule of the game. Nothing stays stagnant. Is globalization dead? Are we all going back into protectionism? Tan Sri Andrew, you might have a better view on that. Our perspective is that the world has rebalanced. And the world has rebalanced so much so that when you take it down into the ASEAN context, I think ASEAN is going to be a big recipient of investments. And as I narrow into Malaysia, though, I struggle to think, have Malaysia kind of underperformed? So before coming here, I did some kind of desktop analysis. I hope my analysis is correct. But if I looked at the years, I looked at it in two buckets, 2001 to 2010, and then 2011 to 2020. 2001 to 2010, I compare the FDI, realized FDI, not approved FDI, but I look at realized FDI across the countries in ASEAN, namely Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. What I found was that on average, the ASEAN countries between 2001 to 2010, compared with 2011 to 2020, ASEAN countries' FDI in realized FDI in value grew by 2.6 times. The outperformance was Indonesia, 4 times. Vietnam was almost 3. Singapore was 2.6. Malaysia, 1.9 times. So clearly, you know what some of our panelists have spoken about, we've underperformed ASEAN in the last 20 years as a recipient of realized FDI compared to some of the other countries. And when I look at Penang, I totally agree with the 3 T's, you know, technology and tourism. But I also put it the other way. Penang has the highest component and dependence on manufacturing. So do we have too much of our eggs in one basket? And within manufacturing, you're talking about the E&E sector. Are we then playing into the whole high beta scenario where we are seeing, you know, whenever, if you're going into a bit of volatility, then of course, well, Penang will kind of swing with the flow. So in summary, when I think about playing it out, and again, caveat is, you know, I come to Malaysia, Penang a lot when I was a kid. I hardly come here nowadays because a lot of my relatives have also kind of migrated outside of Penang. But when I look at sort of the key recommendations from an outside-in perspective, is the first thing is I think we have to play upstream when we think about tech. I think we have to diversify across the value chain. Look at Silicon Valley Bank. One of the reasons why Silicon Valley Bank went into the pickle it did is because it has a very narrow client base. And when the client base was impacted by interest rates, they had less liquidity, and therefore, you know, it caused a lot of strain on Silicon Valley Bank, who then had to redeem their bonds, which were underwater, and so on. So it was the lack of diversity that caused the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. The second thing is tax. I've never been a big fan of tax. I think tax as an incentive is passé. And if you believe low tax to incentivize investment, I think that's gone, because now we should be playing the ecosystem. I know I've spoken to many MNCs, when they come to Penang or the region, they look at the ecosystem around it, and what attracts them to Penang is really the kind of established ecosystem. Digital, we've talked about it a lot, but let me just give you an example. I mean, the world has changed. Even like bankers, we have to seduce you with coffee to come to our booth. Those days, my predecessors, you just sit there and people come to see you, right? But nowadays, we have to give coffee. I also visited many branches since taking over as CEO 6 months ago, and I've noticed that the footfall has really dropped dramatically at the branches. So much so that, you know, you kind of begs the question, why have a branch? But So the whole behavior, the whole consumer behavior has changed. And I think the digital, from a business perspective, is absolutely critical. Especially when you're talking about SMEs, you're talking about going green. Digital footprint means less carbon footprint. Labor, we've also introduced, as a bank, work from home. And we spoke about it briefly at the holding room just now. One of the, coming out of the pandemic, I know some organizations have gone back towards, working from the office. But in our industry, we're around about sort of 40 to 50% work from home. And this will be a permanent feature that we've embraced globally as a bank. And if you're talking about attracting talent, maybe that's one consideration to think about. You can still be based wherever you are, but you are helping the Penang cause. Labor, about the right skill set. I think the skill set's important. Labor is not the issue, it is the right skill set. So I've also kind of been reading up about how, a lot of the institutions here have introduced work-based learning. I think that's great. We should see a lot more of that, and hopefully there'll be more support from the state and also from the federal government for to build relevant skill sets. ESG, everyone's talked about ESG. The carbon tariff that the EU has imposed is again very, very critical to ensure that everyone is fully aware. R&D will mitigate the high beta that we see. And, some people talk about medtech. I think medtech will be a good one. Food tech, medtech, if we can push down that agenda, that will be fantastic. Then you're starting to shift away from just a pure reliance on the semicon industry. And lastly, one of the things that I've observed in my years being out in the international arena is awareness. I think awareness is still not fully there. For a lot of MNCs I speak to, when they decide locations to invest or to move their businesses, they are quite lazy, and they only look at a few locations in terms of where they would invest. The Netherlands Investment Promotion Agency does this really, really well. So the Dutch, they do it really well. And for a lot of you, if you have some time, just go into the Netherlands IPA website to take a look at it. Face-to-face is also very important. Getting out on the market, doing some more road shows. We're seeing, with geopolitics playing up, China Ripple, China Plus One, everyone moving out. I think a lot more face-to-face engagement will make a difference. So that's really my summary. And as the last speaker, I'm going to now hand it back to the moderator. Thank you for listening to me, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mak. And, as a banker, right? Banking now is not so easy as a business, right? I think the bank in Singapore, they hire more software engineers than business in banking, right? Nowadays it's tech, and fintech. So it's very interesting that we're not competing just on tax incentive, we're also competing on ecosystem, right? Penang has 50 years of ecosystem, built a very good ecosystem that's conducive, and we have 500-year history, right? Dato Sri Anwar, we have a long history as a free port city, right? With all the connectivity in the culture. So I think Penang has got a lot of ecosystem that been built over the hundreds of years and as well as the recent years. And the last 10 years, we have built an ecosystem for chip design as well, right? So Penang really is evolving. Penang people are very clever, right? But sometimes too clever. Like according to Dato Sri, I heard one of the speeches that people at Penang are very clever, sometimes in a not good way, right? But I won't mention the name, but he was mentioning the speeches, one of the speeches. So we have about 15 minutes remaining. I'll open it to Q&A, but before that, I'll ask some question. Then you just think about question, then I'll call you up, right? I would like to address the first question to Tan Sri Andrew Sheng, right? Tan Sri Andrew Sheng mentioned about Korea, right? The 3T that you have, the talent, the tourism, and the technology, right? First, technology. Technology is about R&D, about investment, right? And Malaysia, according to your slides, Malaysia only invests 1.9% on our GDP on R&D, whereas the Korea invests 4.9% on R&D. And the Korea GDP is $1.8 trillion US dollar. And our GDP is $373 billion US, about around there, right? So we are actually 4 times less than Korea. But the the population of Korea is not that much bigger than us. It's only 60% more than us, right? So we have 33 million people, whereas Korea has 40, 60 over million people. So what happened to Malaysia? What can we do, right? I mean, Korea don't have car engine before. They also learned from Japanese. But today they produce their own engine, their own electric vehicle, that's the best in the world. So what can we do in Malaysia that can change that landscape?
Well, you have to ask a very fundamental question. Why is it that during the 70s and the 80s, we average 8% growth, which is what Vietnam and Indonesia is heading towards? And yet after the Asian crisis, we grew only at 4%. The answer was very straightforward. We didn't invest in ourselves. Okay? The Malaysian economy post roughly 2000 became a spending by debt economy. How is it that our household debt is the highest in the region, amongst the highest in the world, equivalent to South Korea, and yet our FDI, when we say, well, FDI as Mr. Marcus proved out absolutely right, we are underperforming. Penang has done well in an underperforming economy. And the reason is we have not been able to have a unity amongst ourselves to invest in ourselves, right? So the investment as a proportion of GDP in Malaysia has gone down. Local investment has gone down even more. Foreign investment has been maintained until very recently in the technology area, right? And we've become a spending economy. If you look at the proportion of growth that is pushed by spending, we grow at 4%, our population is growing at 1.5%, means that your economy is only growing at 2.5% in a per capita basis. If Indonesia is growing at 6% and the population is 1.5%, they're growing double our speed. And when Philippines, Vietnam, and Indonesia have 2 times and 3 times our, nearly 10 times our, 8 times our population, what chance have we got if we don't move up the value-added chain? I mean, it's a no-brainer if you look back at the statistics. And yet every year we have beautiful plans in the digital, in the 5-year plans, beautiful plans. And as Mr. Lee Ka-Choon said, Dato Lee Ka-Choon said, we talk a lot, but we don't walk that much.
Okay. Thank you. So before I ask a question to Dr. Halim, I want to pose a question to Dr. Halim, right? I think the TYT mentioned this morning about Penang restoring our free port status, right? This is a very bold statement, right? I think Penang is not just for the economy, but also for the culture link. Because Penang used to be the hub, Freeport is a very important place. People take from Aceh, they come to Penang, Medan, come to Penang, and then they take a boat to England, they take a boat to everywhere, like the Mecca, right? So what do you think about the suggestion that Penang restoring our Freeport status as per TYT's suggestions? Right?
Well, we could make a study on that, and furthermore, now that we are with the unity government to look back into that possibility, and we have to look also at the how much more our port expansion could go, how much it could go, the limitations that any expansion of the port, to what extent, definitely is welcoming if we could get this federal approval on this, but definitely agree to that. But there needs to be a study on that, especially what we used to be before, the Sumatra, Myanmar, what they call this, the West Bengal, Southern Thai, and the Northern Indonesia. That is definitely, we could revive that with the support of the federal government, and and also the capabilities or the capacity of how much Penang port expansion could to maximize on that.
Okay, thank you. So any question for the floor? Any question? Someone will give you the. Right. I think there's all very distinguished panelists. Better ask questions before we lose opportunity. So I'll ask Dato Seri Lee Ka-Choon, right? I think Invest-in-Penang has been doing a good job right? I mean, all these years of the last 2021 was the best year, right? 2021 was the best year, 76.2 billion ringgit of FDI investment, 90% are E&E, right? What are the things that you can do even more? You know, we are doing great. What can we do greater? What are the blue ocean strategy that can we do for Penang? Yeah.
I think we have to be very realistic. Investment is not a linear graph whereby you continue to go up. It is good for the politician to announce continuously, I beat last year, I beat other states and all those. You look at the league table, right? But we have to be very realistic that investment normally go, that is a spurt of investment coming in, then there is a period of consolidation, and then you move, you work on your consolidation, and then you move to the next phase. Normally, it should be like that. That is, in reality, that is the position. We also have to be very careful because of the infrastructure. Just now we were talking about the human resource, the talent. We cannot produce fast enough, and this talent that we have, you need 8-9 months to have a child, and then you have another 20 years to really nurture them of value to the society. If you don't nurture them well, they become a liability to us. I mean, put it very bluntly, because they are just consumer, they are not creator. So I think going forward, the important thing for Malaysia, for Penang, is that we have to look at the technology. If you are not careful, you become a consumer. You become a consumer, you have to think, where are you going to find the money in order to buy the consumable, right? So for us, I look at it, there are two ways. One is the creator. You create, you make money because there is intellectual property in it. Or alternatively, if you are not that smart, you become adopter. Adopter means you use the technology in order to enhance your life, in order to enhance other people's life. And at the end of the day, you add value to the system. So we want to be the creator and the adopter. We don't want to be the consumer. So I think we have to get it very clear in our mind what we want to be. That is my personal perspective. Now coming back, I just maybe to chip in about the Freeport. Freeport is 60 years ago. I think we have to be very careful as at today's position whether Freeport is still an enhancement to Penang or not. Everything is free now. Once your income reach a certain level, why do you need to have Freeport? Because everything is, as a country, we have already regularized. A lot of things are no longer taxable, right? I still remember when I was young, I go over to Butterworth, I carry a lot of other things for other people, right? So you carry clothes, you carry fruits, you carry almost all these sort of things. This is because Penang at that time was a free port. So you bring it over to the other side so that the other side can enjoy a lower price product. But today, do you still have that sort of problem? So that is number one. Number two is that if you look at the free trade zone that we have, this is a free port to us. You import goods, raw materials in, no tax. You export out, no tax. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dato Seri. Any questions from the floor before I ask the banker?
Stephen, this is ET from PSTC. I'm over here.
Hi, E.T. Please.
Can I have a question?
Sure, please.
First of all, thank you very much for a very insightful discussion and from the panel. I can't help thinking that there is a little bit, maybe there's a disconnect somewhere between the thoughts that have been shared today. Because Tan Sri Andrew Sheng was talking about we need to invest in ourselves, and he was very emphatic about it. I'm quite sure we want to do that. But at the same time, we are also looking at FDI. The only two countries that I heard missing from the list of FDI in Asia was Taiwan and Korea. I don't actually hear any data about FDI from those two countries, but they are also one of the most advanced. They overtook Penang, actually. So I was wondering if the panel could kind of make a comment about this little difference that I think I heard. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is very simple to answer. Taiwan and Korea is geopolitical issue. They had to protect their own domestic markets in order to strengthen it against what perceived to be their enemies. You know, South Korea has a North Korean problem, and Taiwan really needed to deal with its own issues, right, which we all know about. So, and then, of course, the Americans were actually relaxed about protection of the South Korean industry. And they wouldn't allow us to do that. I mean, let's be blunt about it, okay? We have to fulfill all this WTO stuff. South Korea and Taiwan have their own ability to be exceptional, put it this way. So the result was actually both adopted national champions and, you know, money invested domestically. And we couldn't do that because we signed up to WTO, we signed up to everything, we're open up to everybody, and that's very good. My point is that we should not see this FDI versus local investment as a conflict. It's this classic, I'm sorry to use this word, Western thinking of, you know, black-white, you know, you win, I lose mentality. It's either or and. FDI and local investment is absolutely critical. Actually, from my days in Bank Negara, someone foreign said, why should I invest in your country when you yourself don't invest in your own country? Which is absolutely right. And actually, tourism is the best investor because Lee Kuan Yew used to say, the best investor is the tourist. He comes, he sees that things work. And the classic Penang story was the waitress who actually showed the, I think, Hewlett-Packard person that she also knew how to work the Hewlett-Packard calculator back in the early, late 70s. That, visitor invested in Penang, right? So if you can convince that you have the talent, they'll invest in you. Even if you go full of oil, as you know some Middle East countries have, they don't have much foreign direct investment because they don't, the locals are actually investing abroad. So I think we're caught in that, tension. But my view is, let's work together as partnership. Unity government means we have unity with not just locals and foreigners at the same time. And that's, I think, the message we have to do. And not just with Penang. I think Dato YB Halim put his finger on it. E&E development is not just in Penang, but with our neighboring, Kedah and Perak, and even Kelantan if needs be. But in my view, our reach for talent should be in Sumatra and southern Thailand and elsewhere, right? Because, they also want to come out. And they're slightly behind us. I'm not saying they're very far behind us. But look at who's investing in Penang property. People from Medan, and elsewhere, right? So that's a real issue.
Okay, thank you. We only have 2 minutes left, but I'm going to ask each of the panelists to share their last point, your last final words, final thoughts. Maybe I'll start with the banker, Mr. Mark.
Oh, now you start with the banker. I wasn't sure you're going to ask this question. I think, look, I've been a banker for 26 years, and every day I'm learning new tricks. And I really encourage all my team members to do that. I will encourage all of you to do that. The last thing I want to hear when I speak to my colleagues is, oh, this is how we used to do it. That's done. I think, we are going to move forward. The past is the past, and I think that's the only way it manifests itself in the business environment and also in Penang. Thank you.
Thank you. Dato Seri, Lee, when you have your final thoughts.
Okay. Actually, I don't have a final message, but I just want to take up some of the issues. I think it's good because this is a discussion. I see what Tan Sri Andrew is talking about, invest in ourselves. So I just maybe take this opportunity to share with everyone. First of all is about investment. Yes, I totally agree that the domestic direct investment is relatively small. That is something that I think we have to resolve. If you look at 76 billion investment from FDI, I look at the figure of a DDI, domestic direct investment, is less than 5 billion. We just see the difference. So this is something that we have to, as a country, we have to ask ourselves exactly what has gone wrong, right? Because we bring in the FDI is because we want them to become the locomotive to pull all the SMI and all the technology upstream. But if you don't do that, then actually the FDI is only good for us to showcase, to feel shocked and dizzy, to say that, oh, this year I have so much, etc., etc. What they are doing is that they come in here, they just write on you for a meal. That means that they take on your tax incentive, they take on your people, etc., etc. So I think for all of us Malaysians, please look into how to invest in ourselves by riding on the FDI. So we hope that the DDI should actually improve accordingly. Coming back to ET's question, I think we are, all of us, we are not talking about talent, right? But talent is actually my major issue. If I don't fix that, I will lose the 40%. Malaysia will lose the 40%. That is the questions that I keep on asking myself. The 40% would not be there if, let's say, we don't have the talent, right? We talk about 6 times Korean and Malaysian, why? Put it very bluntly, are we stupid 6 times more than the Korean? We are not. But the problem is that we have a system that is not producing enough people in order to drive the 40%. If you don't have that, the 40% is gone. I can assure you that Malaysia will be multiple times behind country like Korea. And I'm not talking about Korea. You look at Vietnam, you look at Thailand. Pretty soon we'll be behind if you are not careful. So I think we have to be very straightforward and look at the problem and what is it about. Now, the other thing about talent is that I just want to share, all of you are parents, all of you are brothers, sisters, and all of you are elder generation, you have, nephew, nieces, and all those. Our problem now is, I think ET will tell you, it is not that we don't have the system to educate the people. The problem is that we don't have the candidate to educate. Malaysia today, our problem is that we have the capacity to train 100 people, but only 30% of that capacity is being utilized. The problem is that they cannot find the people to be trained. And you go down all the way is that I think we parents, we want our children, everyone want to go to university, right? We want them to score good marks, aces all the way. And then what do? I did it myself. I go for the easy course in order to do the scoring. I get my A's, right? Nobody want to do double maths, don't want to do physics, science, and all those. So that is the problem. So at the end of the day, the country also like that, all right? So the schools is also like that. The school, in order to get a scholar bestari, the teacher encourage the students to take easy subject to score A's in order to make sure that the school becomes scholar bestari, right? So nobody want to, this is a systemic issue that I think all of us have a role to play. As a parents, we have to look at it. How are we going to fix it? Are we going to compare with the Joneses next door, say that, oh, my son, my children, everywhere over the world, and etc., etc.? So we are actually prioritizing academic qualification to a certain extent. And I think that we can have another forum to talk about the future of education.
Next forum. So I just want to give a quick one to Dato.
I believe in stakeholders' engagement. I think it's so important that the policymakers, the government, the private, the academia, building trust, relationship, and adoption of technologies, and so that any issues will come up with quick decision to address all these issues. So stakeholders' engagement is so crucial. There's bottoms-up approach to this. So,
Thank you. Tan Sri? Final word.
Yeah, I think Dato Choon put his finger on the issue of talent. And I just want to stress this, why unity is critical. We are too used to thinking about silos. Schools look after, government look after. University look after, employers look after. We should be working in partnership. The universities must work with the schools and the parents and the employers together. We've been all talking across each other and says the problem is that side. It's us, man. It's us. Okay? We are the problem. You got second-rate mentality, you will never be first-rate. And that's our key problem. Think big, but act local. And we can do it.
Thank you for all the 4 distinguished panelists. With that, I will end the session today. So please have a global mindset. First class mindset. Okay, thank you.
A round of applause to our first session on attracting investments, forging growth and prosperity.